friends, myself Shweta Ganvir. Today we discuss the topic of crop water requirement and its factor. So what is the water requirement? So water requirement. What is meant by water requirement? Water requirement means it may be defined as the quantity of water required by a crop. Means quantity of water regardless its source required by a crop or diversified pattern of a crop in a given period of a time for its growth at a given place in a field condition at a given place. That means we have to be defined as a water requirement. So water requirement means when again see as a water requirement may be defined as the quantity of water total quantity of water regardless its source, means when apply the water from the particular source, so that regardless means excludes that water. Regardless it may be defined as the quantity of water regardless its source required by a crop or diversified pattern of a crop in a given period of a time during its given period of a time for its normal growth at a field condition at a place. So means when the water we have to apply from the source. So we in earlier topic we have already discussed more maximum amount of water can be losses due to application losses. So in water requirement and most of the water is lost due to evapotranspiration losses, means consumptive use of water, that also you are called as a consumptive use of water. Evapotranspiration loss is called as consumptive use of water because in consumptive use of water, water is required for metabolic process. But when the water is required for the metabolic process, that water is less amount is required for metabolic process. Therefore, that water is a negligible. Metabolic process water required is negligible water, and therefore we have called as consumptive use of water is equal to water required for evapotranspiration water. So water required for its metabolic process is equal to water required for evapotranspiration. So in water requirement, water you have to apply. So evapotranspiration water required for, we have formulated as water requirement is formulated as water required for evapotranspiration plus when the water is applied at the time there is a most of the water is lost, therefore we have called as application losses. We have called as application losses. Application losses means water requirement we have formulated as water requirement is equal to water is required for evapotranspiration losses, or we have say as consumptive use of water, plus water is required for application losses. At the time of water supply it becomes loss due to application losses, and water is needed for special purpose. Special purpose means special need of water, means at the time of field preparation we have to require the irrigation. So special need of water means for field preparation, transplanting, etc. that water we have called as a special purpose. So we have to form water requirement, evapotranspiration, application losses, and water required for a special purpose means for field preparation and transplantation. So water requirement, application losses, and special purpose evapotranspiration. Then how to then it simplify as a, so water required for demand and supply of water is contribution from the source of water, is depend on the source of water. So therefore we can be water, main source of water is a irrigation water. Main source of water is irrigation water, that is IR, and water which is after application, the amount of water which is actually utilized by the plant, that we have called is effective rainfall water, which is actually utilized by the plant, that we have called as the effective rainfall of water, means IR irrigation water and effective rainfall water. Then water in a storage water means water from the soil profile water, storage water, that is yes. So we have mathematically water requirement is here 11 write as a water requirement. The water is required for irrigation water. Then irrigation requirement plus effective rainfall means actual amount of water we have to utilize by the plant, and water from the already water which are from the or soil moisture from the soil storage or soil profile, that is the yes, is denoted by the yes. So water requirement is equal to irrigation requirement of water plus effective rainfall plus that is soil storage water. It is called as the water requirement. Again we see the above definition. Water requirement means it may be defined as the quantity of water regardless its source, means include that source regardless its source required by a crop or diversified pattern of a crop in a given period of time for its normal growth at a field condition at that place, that is water requirement. Next in water requirement term is irrigation requirement. So in irrigation requirement it refers as or it is as irrigation requirement means the water requirement exclusive of effective rainfall and water from the soil profile. Means earlier we see about water requirement equal to it becomes irrigation requirement plus water required for effective rainfall plus soil profile water storage. So we have irrigation requirement then formulated as water requirement exclusive of means therefore exclusive means minus exclusive of effective rainfall plus water is required for or water in a soil profile or storage water, that is we have to write as a or define as a irrigation requirement. Then irrigation requirement of particular form is different. In particular form irrigation requirement is a different because in water requirement we have to formulate it in this way from water requirement. So irrigation requirement of particular form is different because in different form different types of crops we have to grow. So in particular form irrigation requirement is depend on the which type of crop you have to grow in particular field or particular form. Then application losses of that application losses of irrigation in that form. So it is depend on the crop is grown and application losses is for particular irrigations, that depends on the irrigation requirement of the farm. And irrigation requirement is also vary from particular stage of the crop, in which stage crop is real. Therefore the critical growth stages of particular crop is also differ because most of the crop require the water at the which stage, from the grain formation to flag leaf stage to grain formation stage. And in grain formation crop water is required, maximum amount of water is required at the grain formation stage or ear head formation stage. So therefore the irrigation requirement is differ of particular crop, means is different from crop to crop. Then irrigation requirement again classified into two stage, means gross irrigation requirement and net irrigation requirement. So gross irrigation requirement means what is the total amount of water which is required for irrigation, that we have called as the gross irrigation requirement. Mean and total amount of water, that means including losses also, and which is water which is utilized by the plant for its growth also, that total water we have to call as the gross irrigation requirement. And in gross irrigation requirement we formulated as also gross irrigation requirement is equal to net irrigation requirement, net irrigation requirement and field efficiency system, field efficiency system. Gross irrigation requirement means net irrigation requirement plus field efficiency system. Means in field efficiency system means it is the water for the storage losses or distribution losses and application losses is includes in a field efficiency system. So that is the gross water requirement means the total water which is required for the plant for its growth during growth. That is called as gross irrigation requirement. Then next, the next is net irrigation requirement. In gross irrigation requirements, we have about net irrigation requirement. So what is the net irrigation requirement? Net irrigation requirement means it is the depth of irrigation water. It is depth of irrigation water and which is required for a crop for at the effective rainfall during its crop growth and for a crop production. That is means we have called as it is the difference between net irrigation requirement would have right as it is the difference between the field capacity of the moisture which is bring at the root zone depth at the field capacity and the exclusive of effective rainfall. That is the net irrigation requirement and we have to formulate it as net irrigation requirement. We have to formulate it as D is equal to, that is summation n I is equal to 1 in bracket we have to write as P F C I means what? Field capacity, soil moisture which bring the root zone at the field capacity minus PWI means exclusive of effective rainfall divided by 100 multiplied by ASI means specific gravity multiplied by DI. So depth of irrigation water. So PFI means field capacity at a which bring the soil moisture at the root zone at a field capacity. Then PWI means effective rainfall at the ith layer and divided by 100 and ASI means specific gravity at the ith layer and D means it is the depth of water at the I layer. That is we have to formulate it as net irrigation requirement. In crop water requirement, irrigation requirement, in water requirement, the one of the important term we have to see in the definition, that is consumptive use of water. Most of the time this definition asked in examination. Consumptive use of water, CU, which have also called as, this is also called as the amount of water which is required for evapotranspiration. Consumptive use of water is similarly to evapotranspiration. Means what? The consumptive use of water means the quantity of water which is required for the plant for its metabolic process. That means we have to call it as a consumptive use of water. But in during a crop growth for metabolic process the plant required only less than 1%. Less than 1% water is required for a metabolic processes. Therefore metabolic process less than 1%. Therefore this water can be negligible. Less than 1% water is negligible and therefore consumptive use of most of the water is required for the plant for the evapotranspiration. So consumptive use of water is also called as a evapotranspiration required water. Water which is required for the evapotranspiration. So consumptive use of water means the water required for its metabolic processes. So consumptive use of water again we have to classify or say as a two types as a first is seasonal consumptive use of water, seasonal, and second one is peak period of consumptive use of water. Seasonal consumptive use of water and peak period of consumptive use of water. So seasonal consumptive use of water means the total amount of water which is required for the evapotranspiration during the crop. Total amount of water, seasonal total amount of water which is required for the evapotranspiration in particular crop in particular season. So we have to say as green gram, we have to cultivate the green gram in a kharif season. Green gram cultivated in kharif season. So the life cycle of green gram is about 90 days. It becomes 90 days. So in that particular 90 days in kharif season, the green gram required how much total amount of water is for evapotranspiration, that we have to say as seasonal consumptive use of water. And peak period of consumptive use of water means this is called as seasonal consumptive use of water. And peak period of consumptive use of water means it is the amount of rate of water is required during a few days. Rate of water required during a few days, which is the highest consumptive use of that particular season. That is we are called as the peak period of consumptive use of water. Means in peak period, that is few days water is required, which is highest consumptive water required for evapotranspiration, that is peak period of consumptive use of water. And in seasonal consumptive use of water means total amount of water is required for evapotranspiration in that particular season, that particular crop, that is called as a seasonal consumptive use of water. Here we have see about consumptive use of water. So factors affecting crop water requirement. First is crop factor, second soil factor, third one is climatic factor, and fourthly crop management factors, means crop management practices. So first in crop factor we see about variety, which variety which are grown, then growth stages according to growth stage of crop, then duration of crop, then plant population, leaf area index, and stomatal mechanism of the crop, that is the crop factor. Then see about soil factor, texture of soil, sandy, loam, clay, it may be, structure, that is platy structure, it may be, then depth of soil, then topography, it becomes level or high, then field capacity and soil moisture stress. These are the soil factors we have to see about. Then climatic factor. In climatic factor, first is rainfall of that particular region, then solar radiation, then air temperature, relative humidity, wind velocity, and growing season in that particular climatic condition of the season. Then crop management practices. So tillage operations which are carried out, then time of sowing of particular crop, depth of sowing, fertilization of crop, then weeding, mulching, and irrigation. These are the various factors which are responsible for the crop water requirement. So in crop water requirement, see about some of the terminologies we have used. First is evaporation. So evaporation means what? The amount of water which is lost from the water bodies in the form of vapor, that we have called as the evaporation. Then we will see about transpiration. Transpiration means the loss of water in the form of aerial parts of the plants, means mostly leaves, that means the transpiration. And then next is evapotranspiration, ET. We have to use these terms, evapotranspiration. So what is evapotranspiration? The combined loss of water from the evaporation and transpiration, that is we have to call it as the evapotranspiration. Means when the crop is grown in the field, that becomes loss of water through aerial parts of the plants from the plant body, that is transpiration, and the through evaporation, water loss from the soil surface. So that combined loss of water we have to call it as evapotranspiration. And potential evapotranspiration means when the soil surface is fully covered with a vegetation, the water is lost through a combined evapotranspiration and transpiration, through a transpiration and evapotranspiration, that becomes a potential evapotranspiration. And last one is important terminology is a transpiration ratio, where it is called as a transpiration ratio. So transpiration ratio means the amount of water which is transpired by the particular crop during its growth period. during its growth period is transferred the amount of water is lost by the crop during its growth period and is produced the per unit amount of dry matter during that growth, that is called as the transpiration ratio. Most of the time this terminology are also asked. The transpiration ratio means amount of water which is transferred by the plant during its growing period and it produces the dry matter per unit area, that is called as transpiration ratio.